So in this case, in Paul Dart and Trade Coast Investments Proprietary Limited, the Fair Work Commission had to consider whether an employee was over the high income threshold, which at the time was $133,000. The employer, Trade Coast Investments, argued that the employee was over the threshold because he had been provided with a company car, mobile phone and an iPad, which meant that once you added those into his salary, he was actually over the $133,000 and was therefore not protected from unfair dismissal.
I mean, the Commission found in the favour of the employer in this case, and the argument, you know, the employee strongly tried to put was that, well, I needed these for work, which appears to be true given the mobility of his position, but ultimately, and you can understand the position of the Commission, ultimately they just looked at, well, are these benefits that he would otherwise have had to pay for in terms of personal calls, etc., and the answer categorically was yes, he would have had to pay for a phone. He used the phone for certain calls. I mean, the iPad could be more questionable. Did he need an iPad? But he needed those benefits in terms of the car and the mobile phone, and he would have had to pay for them, and therefore he's over the high income threshold.
Yeah. And
I think it's sensible.
They looked at evidence of the fact that he was regularly using the company car for family holidays.
Yeah.
The iPad had more personal pictures on it than work pictures, and they obviously were able to track how many personal calls versus work calls were made. And I think it's just a section of the Fair Work Act that a lot of employers aren't necessarily aware of. Under Section 332, earnings can include more than just wages, things, you know, non-monetary benefits that can be received by an employer. Importantly, though, it doesn't include things like superannuation or reimbursements.
Unless it's salary sacrifice super. And I mean, if someone were allocated, and it does happen, rarely in my experience at the moment, but it used to happen, if you're allocated a phone or a car strictly for work purposes and you have no personal use at all, not even reasonable personal use, then it's not going to be included. But as I said, we find that just doesn't happen that often, and would be ridiculous. It'd just be duplication.
Exactly, and often the intention could be found in the written contract where it might say, and some reasonable personal use. In this case, it wasn't in the written contract, but the court found that there had been oral agreement about it. So if an employer is in a situation where an unfair dismissal application has been brought and they're trying to determine is the employee over the high income threshold, they really need to nut out what are the earnings of the employee, not just their wages, but also other, you know, potentially non-monetary benefits such as use of a car, mobile phone, computer, all of those sorts of things.